Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the ANR Design Unholstered podcast. I'm your host, Alex Costa. This is episode 9, and our guest today is one of my best friends, Zach Hein, who is the Director of Marketing at Weatherby. Formerly worked at CZ and was the person at CZ that really helped me out get into and involved with the CZ pistols and rifles and whatnot. But Zach is now at Weatherby, and he is kind enough to take time out of his busy schedule to join us on the podcast today. Zach, take it away.
Heck yeah. No, I think we met at an NRA show, and you just walked up and said, we need to be friends.
Yep.
And I was like, I know I've seen his Instagram stuff somewhere. I guess we could maybe be friends.
Okay, that's not what happened. That is not what happened.
I think that's exactly what happened.
No, so I sent you a message on Instagram like 6 months prior, and I said, hey, we do a lot of CZ holsters. I'd like to get some CZ pistols direct from you that I can't get locally. Is there anything a deal that we can work out where I can just buy stuff from you? And you never sent the reply email. It sat in your draft box for 6 months. And then
I believe that.
My wife and I were at the NRA convention in Louisville, Kentucky, and I went up to introduce myself to you, and I'm like, hey, Zach, it's Alex. So nice to meet you. And you're like, hey, I'm super busy. Here's a couple free hats. And that was it. That was it. It wasn't until Atlanta, Georgia NRA that we really got to connect more closely.
Wow. I just don't remember it that way.
I don't know. I think we fell in love that trip, too. And we got Day-Day really drunk.
I don't remember that either.
I just remember getting Day-Day super drunk.
Yeah. She probably needed it.
Amen. All right, moving on. So you're at Weatherby now. You're a new hire there. Tell us a little bit about what you do there, what your role is, and what your future at Weatherby is looking like.
Well, so I'm the Director of Marketing over here, so really just coordinating all the content. We've got quite a big content machine. We've got a podcast, which I'm here in the podcast room. We've got a bunch of films that we put out. So kind of going back to way back, Roy Weatherby, who established Weatherby, he was an avid photographer and videographer back in the day, and he'd do his own hunting films back when that wasn't cool, back when you didn't do that. And so we've always really had a strong content background, and some of the films that are going to be coming out, some of the films that have come out lately, pretty sweet. So a lot of stuff focused on Western hunting. We're based out in Wyoming. And so a lot of stuff in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. So yeah, chasing elk, chasing bears, chasing a lot of birds this year. So they don't have a whole lot of bird stuff, and I'm definitely a bird guy. So,
bird guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got Huns, we've got sharptails, we've got sage grouse, which has a limited season out here. And then for some reason, I think it's because all the bird farms around, we have a ridiculous number of pheasants here in Sheridan, which is just amazing. So,
and you love pheasant.
On the walk from my house to my car, I'll hear at least one pheasant crowing every morning.
That's awesome.
So, and it's in town. So
that's awesome.
It's neat.
Gets the hair standing up on the back of your neck, like, oh, I want to shoot that bird.
For the first few times, and then it just gets annoying because you're like, yeah, I can't shoot that bird. It's in town. So it kind of becomes a frustration. So.
Yeah. So Zach, you're from Kansas originally. We've done an annual Kansas trip the last couple of years together. You taught me how to hunt pheasant. You mentored me on pheasant and quail in Kansas, which is super exciting.
Really? I got you into hunting in general.
You did.
Yeah. Because it was kind of ridiculous to me that you lived up in New Hampshire with all the opportunities you had and didn't know how to get into it and didn't have a way to jump in. Didn't have somebody there to mentor you. So,
yeah, I don't have a lot of friends that hunt. I'm from Cape Cod originally. My neighbor hunted, but I never saw him bring home a deer. My parents weren't anti-gun, but they weren't pro-gun either. They were just kind of indifferent. And we never really ate wild game growing up. And then when I got out of college, I bought a shotgun and a pistol and started shooting. But never got into hunting. And you're like, what's stopping you? I was like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to look, what resources, what to do. And you conveniently organized a hunt with Project Upland in New Hampshire.
They made it a lot easier.
You brought the hunt to me, and then you introduced me to AJ and Joe Levesque, and they kind of mentored us on rough grouse and on woodcock, and that was almost 5 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
It
doesn't feel that long ago.
It'll be 5 years.
It's crazy because every state's different. So when you we're talking over the phone or whatever, and I'm trying to teach you how to get into hunting. I don't know anything about New Hampshire.
Yeah.
The land there, like the land access, all the stuff. The fact that if it's not marked, you can just hunt it.
Yeah.
I was like,
private property. You can hunt New Hampshire. Yeah. So if you pull over on the side of the road and you see like a woodcock cover, and you bring up Onyx and you know it's private property and it says like whoever owns it, but it's not posted no trespassing, you can legally, with a firearm, walk onto that person's property with a dog and hunt birds.
That gets you shot out here in Wyoming.
Or Kansas.
I mean, it's just, so every state's different, and they all have their benefits, their pluses, their negatives. Just understanding what that means, though, understanding what the opportunities are. Some places, like in Kansas, there's only 2% public lands.
Right.
And man, without the walk-in hunting program, it would be terrible.
Okay, so explain walk-in hunting program in Kansas, because we did hunt public land at one point. We did get some quail out of some public land, right? Yeah, we did. That like little like park area. They had like that wooden brown sign at the front. It wasn't private.
Okay. Well,
remember the wind picked up? That storm blew through, and the wind really, really, really picked up.
I hunt a lot, Alex. I don't remember it, but
damn.
What we hunted probably 98% walk-in. So what that means is it's private land that's been enrolled in the state program that allows hunters there are a couple different windows, but between the opening of hunting season, September 1 and through January 31st, to be able to come on and hunt. It might be specific species. It might be only birds. It might be only turkeys. They might not allow rifle deer hunting, but it gives public access on private land. And they pick and choose. They want to have some for pheasants, quail. They want to have some for turkey, some for deer, some for prairie chickens, some for geese. Like having green wheat fields that are in walking, you drive by them and you go, what can you hunt there? Well, you can shoot geese off that. So they've got a mix. They try to get a mix all over the state of different lands and different habitats to give folks as many hunting opportunities as they can. And because it's the walk-in hunting access program, you can't drive a vehicle onto it. You basically pull up to it, and you can walk in and bring your dogs and bring your guns and shoot birds. So it gives opportunity where 50 years ago you'd be able to go, if you pull up to a place that looked like it was good cover for pheasants and quail, you could find the farmhouse that's right near it, and they'd probably be the ones that owned it or knew the owners. Mm-hmm. And you could knock on the door and try to get permission. And nowadays all those little farms are gone. You have a bunch of big farmers that, the farmhouse is probably the guy who works on the farm. He's living there and taking care of the property and taking care of machinery. He's not the owner. He can't give the permissions. And so getting access in Kansas on private lands is very difficult nowadays. And without the walk-in program, it would be almost impossible. So it's a very valuable program. It's open to in-state, out-of-staters. I mean, that's where you're going to drive down the road. You're going to pull up to a piece of walk-in, you look at it on Onyx, and you go, that's going to be a great one. And opening weekend, you pull up there. There might be Alabama plates on one corner and Kentucky plates on another corner because, people are doing the exact same thing you are. So yeah, a lot of out-of-staters. It brings a lot of people in, which is a great thing. On that hunt, I think, not necessarily on the hunt that you were on, but in that week and a half that I did kind of the out in the back, we hunted in 13 counties. We got up 18 coveys of quail, with a ton of roosters. So
18 coveys of quail. Now that was the year prior, we only got about 5 coveys of quail. So the quail population really had a good year.
Yeah, that year, I think when so there are different ways they kind of measure what the quail population is doing. And one of them is the call count. I don't remember exactly what they call it, but it's where post office workers that are on a rural route, they actually stop every once in a while and listen for calls and basically gauge the population based on the number of calls they're hearing in the mornings.
It's wild.
Last year, it was like the population 2 years ago was good. Like, it was up quite a bit from what it normally is. And last year, it was up 783% in some of those counties we were hunting.
Wow.
It was incredible.
And we saw that. It reflected.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Big coveys and more of them. So I saw the biggest covey of quail I've ever seen in my life last year out in western Kansas. So, and we got into quail all the way out to places I thought we were too far west to really get into the quail. And that we were on a
death hike.
It was an old railroad bed. Not the death hike, but the one where we did the railroad bed up through.
Yeah.
We got multiple coveys of quail up there. And that's so far west, I didn't expect to find quail that far.
That's awesome.
So it was excellent.
Yeah,
we had a strip of walk-in that kind of was just all around where an old railroad bed was, and it was all grown up, and it was perfect. So
yeah, we did that 2 separate days. We did a little bit the first day for pheasant, and then we did a hipster upland hunt. So we all got dressed up in hipster. I had like a Vietnam era jacket and a scally cap on, and people got in full suits and garb. Tweed suits, the smoking jackets with the elbow pads and all that stuff. Yeah, it was one of those things where in the upland community there's a lot of grief for being hipsters, and on the CZ side there's a lot of grief for being hipsters. So they kind of come together there, and we're like, we're going to lean in even further on this, and we gave points and everything. Yeah, so. Sam did pretty well. He busted out the full tweed suit.
Yes.
Our friend Sam. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, and then to top it off, we had to all pick out of a hat guns, and I got hammer fired 18-inch double gun, 2-trigger double gun, and I was like, I'm not gonna hit shit with this. And I knocked some quail. So
yes, you did. Yeah, it's actually not a bad gun for quail, especially in those tight conditions.
Tight cover, and it's a blunderbuss. And and it had enough recoil that I accidentally banged both triggers one time and put a flurry of birdshot up, and I knocked the bird. So it worked out.
Well, even a blindfold squat.
All right, joke's over. You can't say it. Nope. Yeah, you missed it. All right, so let's go back on track. So that's some good storytelling, but I got some notes here. So we did our first hunt in New Hampshire. It was the first time being introduced to it. I was dead set on carrying a Supreme Field under 12 gauge, and I love that gun. I think it's a beautiful gun. It's a gorgeous gun, gorgeous wood. You handpicked that for me, but I learned real quick that side-by-sides and lighter profile shotguns is the way to fucking go. New Hampshire is dense cover. This gorgeous side-by-side or over-under is getting beat to shit, and I needed something a little bit more rugged. Side-by-sides for me, I actually shoot them quite a bit better, and I ended up switching eventually to a Sharptail 20-gauge side-by-side. But I learned a lot that trip. I did not shoot a grouse. You shot a rough grouse. I shot a couple woodcock, and we got snowed out.
It dumped. It dumped right as we were driving up there.
The day that we went up there, they were telling us that we pushed 25 grouse yesterday. We're gonna be knee deep in grouse all week. It's gonna be an epic hunt, epic video. And then we got 28 inches of snow on the way up there, and we spent the whole first day cutting down trees with a chainsaw and getting to camp.
We had to buy a chainsaw.
We had to buy a chainsaw and then get to camp.
Just to be able to get back up in. Yeah.
It was an adventure, and I think for people that are getting into hunting, it's not always about killing the animals. It is about the whole process and the adventure.
Oh, the experience. Yeah. I mean, that's a hunt I'm never going to forget. That was a blast. And honestly, it was my first time ever hunting grouse and woodcock. Like I've hunted a lot of different birds, and I've never been to New England. I've never hunted grouse. Getting back to the shotguns, I was ribbing you because you love that over under, but it's kind of blasphemy to go into the grouse woods in New England and take anything but a side by side.
Yep. So I learned that.
So I gave you so much grief about it, and so then I was picking up my gun. I was like, well, crud. Now I got to get a side by side to shoot, and so I picked out a side by side, and that was the experience that really kind of pushed me over the edge. Now I'm a through and through side by side guy.
Yeah.
Like my collection has grown a lot in the last few years.
Yep.
Just in the side by side realm. So that was a mistake on my part because now I've got just a boatload of side by sides.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had a good hunt. You know, you got to see some of the more beautiful parts of New Hampshire as well.
Yeah.
We were up in a very, very secluded part of New Hampshire, a place that a lot of people don't get to experience. So it was gorgeous. We're hiking up the sides of mountains, chasing birds. It was cold. It was miserable some days. Some days were warm and nice. But we had a really, really solid trip. And, to remind everyone about hunting too, Zach and I went on, an Idaho elk trip, in the Frank Church Wilderness at 8,000 feet on horseback, and neither of us shot an animal. So
one of us had an opportunity, but,
What do you mean one of us had? No, you're standing right next to me.
I was standing right behind you. Otherwise, that elk would have been dead.
No, you had your gun slung. There was no way. I had scope covers on because we were actually getting real close to get ready for lunch, and we're kind of, all right, we got to get some energy in us, like kind of starting to slack. And we heard one bugling to our right in a hole, and we're like, oh, all right, that one's going to sit there for a while, so let's go have lunch. And we're getting ready, and this satellite bull pops right up in front of us, and man, I had my crosshairs on for a heartbeat, but he went down the ridge, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's a story for another time. But for everyone that is getting into hunting, you don't always have to shoot something. It's the whole experience. Being up in Idaho at that elevation, it was arduous, to say the least. Through the smoke of California wildfires, it was apocalyptic, and it was truly an amazing experience to be up there. And I think the nice thing with hunting for me that I get out of it is it's essentially hiking for me, at least in New Hampshire. Hunting in New Hampshire is hiking, and I hate hiking. I don't find the enjoyment that other people have for hiking. Like, oh, I climbed this mountain today, yay! Then I had to climb back down it. Like, I don't enjoy that. I don't know why. I just don't. It's just I love sightseeing, but I'm not gonna fucking hoof a bunch of shit up to hoof a bunch of shit down with no purpose. I found that hunting has gotten me outdoors so much more, and I enjoy the scenery a lot more because when you get into hunting and you start going down that path, you start looking at habitats. You're not just looking around being like, oh, that tree's pretty. Oh, this landscape is pretty. You start looking at habitat going, oh, that mid-growth is sandwiched between new growth and old growth. That's grousey. There's definitely birds in there. Or you got like old apple orchards or birch trees in a field, and you're like, oh, that'll hold woodcock through the summer. That's a place that I'm going to want to walk with the dog, and I'm definitely going to put up a bird out of that cover. And it comes down to even like, elk, deer, turkey, all of it,
It changes the way you look at everything as you're driving through. So it might have been your normal commute back into, to the office, but now you're looking at it in a completely different way. You're going, that is something I need to actually investigate.
Yes.
And understand that you'll start learning the trees, you'll start learning the plants. It changes the way you see nature every day.
It does. It really, truly does. And AJ tipped me off to a woodcock cover, and I've been no dog hunting that cover for 2 seasons now, and I have had limit days without a dog. So just just observing, you know what kind of bird you're hunting. You've had experience hunting that bird. You know how that bird's going to behave. And you can start to connect the dots even without a dog, and which will probably make me, with my dog, when she gets on birds this fall, might make it more, I'll be more successful because I know what to put her on and where to kind of guide her to bring success for her. So hunting in general, not just bird hunting with dogs, but just hunting in general it completely changes your perspective of the wilderness, wildlife, and habitat around you. You just start looking at it differently. I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer. I look at the whole world differently because I want to know how this was made and that was made. And, oh, this fucking aluminum receiver, that's definitely extrusion. And then they machine it afterwards. Like, it just gives you perspective. So hunting game in certain habitats, you start to have a different perspective on the wilderness and the outdoors. And it brings like a greater feeling of purpose when you're actually out there.
Sure. Well, there are a couple things like using hunting as an excuse for a vacation, like finding a getaway, finding a thing to do.
Yeah.
Like you can go sit on a beach somewhere, that's nice in its own right. But when you are like planning for an elk hunt in Idaho, where it's not like a relaxing vacation, but it's a vacation from all the stresses and all the normal stuff, and putting a completely different set of stresses and just getting you out of your element. It's like out here in Wyoming. The last few years I've been going to the kind of the Lander area to hunt sage grouse. And you get out in those sage flats and it's just, there's nothing.
Flat forever.
It's just sage. It's just rolling hills and sage. And it has no value to you until you realize that that's the only thing that's keeping these sage grouse around, is having that uninterrupted habitat. If somebody would start to develop that, or if they were to, burn it and, graze cattle, and then set up a cattle operation there, that's going to push those birds further and further out and into little pockets of cover because they need those big expanses. So hunting for me has shown me the value of different habitats that are foreign to me. Like that sage flat, in my mind, I never even thought about it back in Kansas. But now that I've been there and seen it and experienced that's the only thing that's keeping these sage grouse around, now it has value to me.
Right.
Before it had zero value to me. I had no perspective on it. But now it's like, yeah, I want to make sure that, I want to be involved with organizations that help protect that and protect it forever. And there are some really good organizations all over the nation that are finding ways to preserve, build habitat for all different species.
Right. And
depending on where you are, they're completely different organizations. So yeah, like up where you are, Rough Grouse Society, American Woodcock Society, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever down where I am, QUWF, which is what I was a member of back in Kansas. And then you get like Wyoming Wildlife Federation out here, and a bunch of different organizations across the U.S. that they understand what their area needs for habitat, for their game, and they're working with everybody involved to try to protect and build that.
Yep. So it's like New Hampshire. Joe Levesque was telling us that they were working with the logging. So the area that we hunted together on our first hunt is kind of renowned in this area, but there's a lot of logging up there. And they started working with the logging companies to do like a patch quilt logging, deforestation of the woods. So you'll get these patch quilts from satellite feed, and you'll get old growth, mid growth, new growth, and then they rotate it. And what they are is grouse. Rough grouse are an insanely complex animal. They need the mid growth is where they kind of hang out during the day. The new growth, they'll get buds and stuff in the wintertime when they're not feeding on the ground. And then they use the old growth for security and shelter at nighttime. So they're a very complex animal. And again, there's where that perspective comes in when you're looking at habitats. You're like, oh, there's some old growth in between a cut where they a couple of years ago, they cut all these trees down, 10, 15 years ago, they cut these trees down to potentially develop. It never got developed. So now you have new growth, mid growth, old growth. There might be birds in there. And we're seeing, even down where I hunt those woodcock in that cover, dude, we flushed three three grouse last year out of it, and we never get grouse that far south. So that might be an indicator last year that the grouse population up north for resident older birds is strong, and the younger birds are getting pushed out and farther south. The tick population here is really bad this year.
Do they eat ticks?
No. So ticks are the number one killer of ruffed grouse.
See, something I wouldn't know. Another thing is, like, as an outsider looking in, I would think that logging would be always bad, right?
Yep.
You just think that, yeah, you're deforesting, you're getting rid of cover. Well, for grouse, that's absolutely the opposite. They need actual, like, planned logging.
Yep.
So that you end up with those different stages of growth.
And since they started doing that, the population has been much stronger. I mean, it would come just like the burn down in Kansas. You know, you guys burn the prairies, but it comes back stronger than ever. You know, we were talking to Kevin Murphy, and he was super anti-logging for a really long time. And then he started learning about the habitats and how, like, controlled logging actually is super, super imperative to the existence of certain species. So, you know, don't always, you know, you get these super, you know, earthy environmentalists that are like, you can't cut down a single tree. It's horrible. But, you know, I mean, I can't say this for all hunters, but hunting with you and the people that you keep around you are conservationists through and through. They just...
There's a difference between protectionists and conservationists.
Yes.
So a protectionist just wants those animals to be safe and secure and all that, and they don't understand there's more involved. And sometimes you need to take those trees out. Sometimes you need to have some type of habitat management system. And also there are times where you need to take either older males, depending on what species you're talking about. Maybe you need to be impacting the predators a little bit.
Yep.
So there are a lot of different things that, as far as from a conservation standpoint, it might not make sense to somebody who just wants to protect animals. But you're doing better for the animals by taking, you know, some animals.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a balance. People don't realize there's a balance, and it's super, super important. You know, all over TV, you'll see, oh, the wolves are being killed in Idaho, left and right. Well, we were out there and we saw lots of evidence. We didn't see a fucking wolf. You know, they are super smart, super elusive. There's no known modern day, you know, wolves killing a human event. Not to say it didn't happen in the Western expansion, but, you know, the wolves up in Idaho are an introduced species. And you talk to hunters up there. Yeah, reintroduced species. And the way that they basically have completely changed the landscape, you know, where elk would just be out in the plains, and now you don't get them in certain areas because the wolves are so heavy. I'm going on a nilgai hunt, not a nilgai hunt. I'm going on a gemsbok oryx hunt in New Mexico in August, and I forget why, but there was an invasive plant. I believe it's an invasive plant species, and the animal that consumes that plant is a gemsbok oryx. So they introduced gemsbok oryx to certain areas of New Mexico up in the mountains to manage this plant species. And gemsbok oryx reproduce like rabbits. So now you have an African plains species that lives naturally in New Mexico that you can hunt as a resident and an out-of-state resident. But again, it's on private property, so you do have to hire a guide and get permission. But, you know, the wildlife is wild. Like, I just shot an axis in Texas, a wild axis, not on someone's high fence property. This was a wild axis, 200-something pounder, and just came strolling through my buddy's property, you know, and they have a huge axis population down there near Menard. And, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, you know, it's wild. So, and that goes into like the different species and know what's in your area. I'm up in New Hampshire. We got black bear. We have a lottery system for moose. We've got whitetail, turkey, snow hare. I've got a ton out behind my house. There's no season on. There's an open season year round on coyotes. You can't hunt bobcat, but we got bobcats. There is trapping here. You can do fox and other furred animals. We have 3 squirrel seasons, and we got grouse. We've got quail, but they stalk in some parts. There are northeast quail, northeast Bob White's here, but they're mostly in Massachusetts, and they're very small population. And then there's a stocked population. We don't have pheasant natural up here, but the state stocks 22,000 birds a year. So there's opportunities for pheasant. And one thing you taught me was every year buy all the tags. I don't buy the fur trapping tags, but I buy everything that I can possibly shoot tags, because that money goes back into conservation of those habitats.
Yep.
So it might be an extra $100, but that $100 is almost a donation.
It's going to a great place. You're actually focusing where your money's going, and even for people who don't hunt, if you want to contribute in some way, buy a duck stamp. To hunt ducks, you have to have this federal stamp. There's a state stamp too, but
Post office,
buy
right?
a duck stamp. Yeah, you can go to the post office and buy it, and that money goes right to conservation. So it's not a whole lot of money, and it goes directly to something that needs money. So, yeah.
Jorge and I were talking the other day. We were talking about taxes, and he's like, it would be so cool if you could pick where your tax money goes every year, and that there's a lottery pool that, like, oh, I want all my taxes to go to conservation, but once the conservation pool is filled up, you get to donate your taxes. There's a list, like, oh, I can break my taxes down. If you want to donate to conservation, there are ways, like Zach just said. Buy a duck stamp, go buy a fucking license, spend the money.
Much to the chagrin of some people who are, into shooting but not hunting, that we actually got a lot of grief in my previous life. We would post about this. So an FET, 11%. So when you buy guns and ammo, you are contributing to conservation. So there's a 11% FET on all rifles, shotguns, ammo, some bow stuff. So that money goes directly back into conservation. That not only, it doesn't just help hunters, it helps nationwide for public lands. So that's the major source of money. And then those states actually have to, I'm not sure exactly how it works in every state, but they have to have maybe matching funds that are brought in from licenses and fees to be able to access those federal funds. So when you buy a duck stamp, when you buy a gun or go out and buy ammo, if you can find ammo right now, that there is a portion of that money that's going directly to helping conservation in the United States. So when you go and buy, even if you don't hunt, if you were to buy a hunting license in your state, that money is helping your state capture those federal funds. So bringing more money into the state to help with conservation there, for habitat projects, for youth, hunter education, youth hunting opportunities, all sorts of things.
Awesome. So let's talk about how people can get into hunting. I'm a tactical gun guy. You introduced me to my first hunt, set the hook, totally hooked. Now I hunt on my own, hunt dogless. I bought my first hunting dog. She's a puppy. She's a fucking monster.
Change everything too.
It's going to change my entire life for the better. All the pain and shit everywhere is going to pay off when she points and retrieves her first bird this fall. She'll be 7.5 months on October 1st. No, she'll be like 7 months on the nose on October 1st. And that is a huntable dog. So I'm really excited for that. But for people in the tactical community, you guys shoot tactical all day long, but you're not testing your abilities on animals. You're not testing your adrenaline. You're not, I hog hunt in Texas a couple times a year because it is a opportunity for me to apply. I could wear my nods and my helmet and my full kit because hogs are bullet sponges. And you really get to apply yourself and put your tactical rifles to the test. And are you capable of doing what you believe you are capable of doing with a weapon system, and taking an animal's life and doing that? Hogs are obviously a pest, so it's different. It's not hunting to me, it's pest control. But it's an opportunity that you actually get to apply all these training and sciences and everything that you work for on something that's living and breathing. And it's not, for me, I don't enjoy killing things. Like when I shoot a hog, like I fucking, it hurts me. You know, I shot a lot of hogs, you know, but I'm not up there like, woo, let's go kill some more fucking hogs. Like, you know, we have some friends that are like that where they just love killing shit. I don't enjoy killing hogs. I enjoy being able to apply what I've learned in the tactical community and apply it on something and actually run my guns for how I usually train. Now, the hunting side of me is it's more poetic. It's getting out, even though I didn't shoot anything, I'm out there lugging around a gun all day behind a dog, and I'm just experiencing habitats in my local community or other states. And it's been a great opportunity for me to travel to other states and get to learn other habitats and learn people's culture. Like, hunting is a culture for a lot of these people. I didn't grow up with it in my family, but meeting people that have grown up, like Kevin Murphy, squirrel hunting his whole life. Like, that was his culture, that West Kentucky culture. So it's a really beautiful experience getting into hunting and finding these people that you can hunt with and learning how to hunt different species. And then you start to find out these species are very similar. Like squirrels, first 2 hours of the morning, last 2 hours at night. There's a lot of deer, first 2 hours of the morning, last 2 hours at night. Turkey, same deal. So there's a lot of parallels between different species. But first, for the purpose of this podcast, why we wanted to get together is try to motivate people to get out there and get into hunting. And Zach, I'll let you start. How do you get started in hunting? What are the first steps all the way through places that you can suggest people to get into our mentorship, online, YouTube, other people that you would refer people to watch and to educate themselves? Like, that's the biggest step for me, was like, where the fuck do I start?
Yeah. Well, and the problem is there's no easy answer for that, because every single place is going to have a different opportunity.
Right.
So honestly, I think most of the people that would watch or listen to this are going to be in the tactical side of things. And so hog hunting is a great one. It's a lot of folks use it as kind of a vacation getaway, and they'll go down to Texas and book a hunt and go hog hunting. Being able to run a gun under stress, sometimes running guns at night, just all the different things that people train for and then never really get to use. Being able to actually use that stuff. Along the same lines, when, there are different like mental modes. So hog hunting, definitely more like extermination. I mean, there'll be some hunts where you just do a sit and you're waiting and you maybe see one and shoot it. Well, there are other ones where you see a boatload. Different ways you can hunt. I've done thermals with Todd, and you could do a helicopter hunt. All sorts of different ways.
I do that. Yep.
And so as an extermination hunt, I mean, you are absolutely helping the habitat down there by taking those invasive animals off the property. I mean, they are destroying farmers' fields. They are multiplying like crazy. So along the same lines, if you want to do something like that and you're in a flyway for snow geese, there are conservation efforts being made to try to take snow geese off the landscape because they have multiplied in such a fantastic fashion. And so you'll have fields that have 20,000 snow geese in them.
Wow.
Just mowing things down. And so all through the late season, you'll have folks that just set up just for snow geese, and they'll spend hours and hours setting up as many decoys as they own and can borrow, just to be able to entice those snow geese to land, because they want to push to that really, wherever all those snow geese decoys are. The more decoys, the denser it is. That must mean the food's better there. And these snow geese they want to come in and just decimate crop.
Mob mentality.
So it's wild. And so doing something like a snow goose hunt, where you get to run. I mean, if you're shooting 3-gun, if you have a 3-gun shotgun, that's the perfect shotgun for snow geese, because typically you'll have no limits. You shoot as many shells at them as you want because they're trying to take them off the landscape. Out in the west here, pigeons of all things. So you'll have feedlots, you'll have places where they transition from like cliffs where they live, or underpasses, overpasses, over the feedlots to feed. And those pigeons, they steal an incredible amount of grain. So
yeah.
In the west, setting up with decoys and decoying in pigeons, and there's typically no season and no limit for those, and they're great eating. And the same thing with the hogs. Same thing with the snow geese. As long as you know how to prepare them. I mean, people might scoff at a snow goose, but no, you can make some darn good stuff with a snow goose.
If you slow cook anything,
yeah,
cooking anything,
it's about time and effort.
Yeah.
If you put some effort into it, yeah, you can make that darn tasty.
Yeah.
So that's one side of it. If you're kind of wanting just to not necessarily do take advantage of tactical training or that, if you're just wanting to get into hunting where you can, small game, it's the easiest way. Squirrels, rabbits, a 22, which most people either have a 22 or can get access to them. They're affordable, or a shotgun that you already own. I mean, there's so many different ways to get into it. Squirrels, nowadays, people seem to turn their nose up at eating squirrel.
Love squirrel.
And it's so stupid. Because as Kevin Murphy would tell you, they're out there running around in the woods eating the best stuff the woods has.
Yep.
So they're eating nuts, they're eating buds, they're just, yeah. So it's a premium game meat, and people don't believe it.
It's very mild. So like for gaminess for a squirrel is not gamey whatsoever. It's very mild. It does have a unique smell when you bake it, but it is so. Kevin Murphy.
You're gonna find that with every game meat though.
Right. Kevin Murphy taught me how to do the 1 minute squirrel skinning, and it's fast. And if you guys want to see how we clean them, we have it in the video that we did with Kevin Murphy called Kentucky Roots. It's on our YouTube channel. But he taught me how to cook squirrel. Take the whole carcasses, you butter them up, salt, pepper, tons of butter. I put a little adobo on mine, and you bake them whole, 275 degrees for like 3.5 hours, and just slow cook them. Just make sure you wash. You soak them overnight in a brine. I do equal parts sugar and salt. Brine them overnight. Wash them. Gets all the blood out. Make sure you really wash them, because when you clean squirrels, they have those really fine hairs that will stick to them. So wash them super thoroughly. Pat them dry. Stick them. Prepare them. Bake them. Slow cook them. And then you can actually. People think, oh, squirrel doesn't have meat on it. 3 squirrels will fill a Tupperware container this big. Like it's like. 3 squirrels is the equivalent of like a rotisserie chicken that you get at the store. About equivalent amount of meat. It's more flavorful. And what I do is I cook them, and then once I had all the meat apart, I'll throw some taco seasoning in a pan and re-cook them in the taco seasoning, and it just breaks down all those proteins and fats. And we just make squirrel tacos, and they're unreal. So deck to table is a real thing. And we get snow hare out back. I didn't see any. They're out at night only, and you got to run them on dogs. And obviously you can't take them at night. But I would love to. I've never had snow hare, but yeah, small game is awesome. And squirrel hunting is not easy either. And they hunt them with dogs down in Kentucky, and the dogs tree them, and then But we have so many squirrels out back. I've shot a few this year, and I had some squirrel here. And our squirrels are bigger here in Kentucky.
Well, you
way
got
bigger.
red squirrels, you got gray squirrels, you got all sorts of squirrels. And honestly, you don't have to have dogs that hunt squirrels. You can just head out with a 22, basically just get into a spot where you think there are going to be squirrels. Look for nests in the winter when all the leaves are off.
Yep.
So you kind of know where the squirrels are hanging out in river bottoms. You'll learn the trees that they like.
Big trees.
Yep. And so you basically just go and sit and wait. And once you've been sitting for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, everything around you has resumed. I mean, you tromp through the woods getting there, but once you sit down, once you are quiet and just waiting, the woods wake up around you.
Yep.
And so it's not only you're out there hunting, you're also getting to experience the woods near you and understanding what's going on there. And you might find mushrooms, you might find, you might be walking through and find morels or whatever, and you need to learn about that stuff. And once you know what it is, you know that it's an edible mushroom, man, you're gonna be looking for those as much as you are for squirrels.
Yep.
So yeah, just it'll get you exposed to the woods, it'll get you exposed to the stuff around you. And if you live in a place that doesn't have squirrels and woods, I feel sorry for you, but there are absolutely other small game opportunities there too. It's just a matter of figuring out what they are. Sometimes the issue is like breaking through. It's knowing how to do it, where to go, what to do, and you just don't know where to start. And probably the easiest way, I would say, to find out where you are is to get involved with an organization. Nowadays, people our age, we're not getting involved. We're not volunteering as a whole.
Right.
The membership in all these different volunteer organizations has just plummeted in the last 20 years. So finding an organization that you think might work for you. So it might be Pheasants Forever. It might be Rough Grouse Society. Just show up to a banquet. Find them on Facebook. Figure out when they're meeting and just show up. The thing is, just kind of ease your way in. Don't be too brash and over the top to begin with, but just listen, volunteer, get involved. They're going to have a trash cleanup day where they clean up a couple miles of a road. Whatever, go do those things. You're gonna start to build relationships with the people that if they're in that organization because this thing is a part of their life, and they love it. And when they find out that you don't really know what you're doing, but you're happy to volunteer and kind of pick up what you can, you're going to end up getting taken on hunts, and they're going to mentor you just because of how much effort you put in volunteering for the organization they care about. So they, even if you don't have a clue what you're doing, you're showing up and helping with the pancake feed or whatever. And all of a sudden, you're their best friend because they know you don't have anything going on. But my bank's calling me. But it's gonna give you an intro into the hunting in your area that is invaluable. You could not get a better introduction to pheasant hunting in Nebraska than getting involved with the Pheasants Forever Club chapter in the area you live in.
Right.
It's going to be the best intro to hunting you ever had.
Right.
So
that's the best way to get involved. Go take your hunter safety course. You might meet some people at the hunter safety course that are teaching it. That might be able to point you in a direction locally. Hunter safety courses, you can do a lot of it online, and then you have to show up in person to take the tests. I didn't really study. I kind of just guessed. Passed with like a 92%. It's mostly common sense.
I would push people to actually do them in person because you learn a lot.
But you have to do the test in person now.
Okay.
There's still the 8-hour. I still had to do the 8-hour in New Hampshire in class, and then at that class, the afternoon portion, we were out. They did land nav.
Really?
They brought air guns out so people could shoot air guns and at least like handle it, because there was actually like 3 or 4 people in the class that had never shot a gun. Firearm safety, hunter safety. They put up a tree stand and showed us the do's and don'ts of tree stands. It was a more involved one, which was good. I appreciated it.
That's
They put a lot more effort into it. Even though they put a lot of effort into it, I don't think they were the safest people. The guy said, never point a gun at anything you don't intend to destroy, and as he turns, he flags the entire class. So, you're going to get your FUDs and stuff like that. But, so that's definitely the best way to start. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask questions. Because once they realize, like you said, you don't know what you're doing, the hunting community really is one of education. Because, some of these people might not have kids that they can pass this down to, and they just thoroughly enjoy educating people. Kevin's kids all flew the coop, and Kevin's super stoked that we came down to Kentucky to learn how to squirrel hunt, You have opportunities like that. So that's where to start if you want to get into hunting. And then learn what you can hunt. Like you said, learn what you can hunt in your state. And then what is the most feasible for you to get involved and get started. Small game's awesome. Birds, that's a tough one. It depends what birds are in areas. I mean, birds are, you just have to put in the time.
Easy or tough.
If you don't have a dog and you at least are observant in habitats, you're going to be able to walk fields and shoot pheasant. You're going to be able to walk and even the tiniest little plum thicket on the edge of a shitty field in, a tilled field in Kansas will hold quail. If you know what you're looking for, you can hunt dogless and be successful. You're just going to put in 10 times the amount of work. But
you will, but that'll just be for the initial, because it again, if you were to kind of team up with somebody at a conservation organization, they take you on a hunt, you're going to start seeing what cover matters.
Right.
You're going to start seeing where those birds are actually being held and where they're feeding out into and what time of day they're going to be out feeding and all that type of stuff. You'll learn that. And then you could go hit it on your own and just pick covers that are manageable for a person, solo without a dog. Because it does exist. It's definitely out there.
Yep.
So you're going to, be hitting little fingers that come out into a field that, they're going to hold one rooster and a covey of quail.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a matter of getting the experience to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, in New Hampshire, when we hunt the stock pheasant fields, me and Gil, my buddy Gil, we don't have dogs. We see all these dudes that don't ever work their dogs throw a bunch of labs into a cover. And for pheasants, you always need blockers. So what we do is we just position ourselves at the end of the field or the end of whatever cover that all these people are beating, and all the birds fly out. And they're shooting and missing because they're fuds. They don't go shoot outside of the season. And you got me and Gil, we limit out in the first 5 minutes of, we walk, fishing games. They're like, all right, you guys go out in the field and go hunt birds. And all these dudes are running their dogs. I won't bring my puppy there this year. I got shot in the dick last year. I got tagged at 60 yards with bird shot. It didn't penetrate anything, thank God. But I won't take my puppy there. But we go out and we shot pheasant every time without dogs, because these other guys don't. At least in New Hampshire, most of these guys that are hunting stock pheasant don't know how to hunt, so they're just throwing their dog in there. They don't have blockers. They don't understand how pheasant actually run and how they operate. So, and you taught me how pheasant operate, so I pass that along, to my friends here, and we just stand in a line and the birds fly out. We shoot the birds. We walk back to the trucks, and they're like, "You don't have a dog?" And the same thing goes for woodcock. I found a really beautiful old orchard, public land. It was privately owned, but the public goes there, and it's an old decrepit orchard, and all the trees are tented, and the woodcock hang out under the tents. And I just me and Gil will slow walk the tents, kick it up, get a bird to flush, pop them. And Gil and I do really, really well without a dog at a couple covers that we hit. So, you just need to put it in the time, and you can get it done. You just need to understand the birds. So don't be afraid to get into bird hunting and not have a dog. Yeah. I mean, just even walking habitat out in the woods with a shotgun for hours, you're going to flush a bird. And if you know how certain upland game species flush, and you know what they sound like when they flush, you know what you're shooting at, you know how to ID them, inherently, if you're putting miles on your feet, you're gonna be able to shoot something. Yep.
Yeah, it's just all a learning process too. It just takes time. You can't expect to go out the first time and just know everything. It's going to take time. It's going to take a number of trips to kind of get your feet under you and kind of figure out what's going on. So, yeah.
So we're in a digital age right now. Let's say someone doesn't have one of these local communities to them. What are some good online references or people to listen to, podcasts to listen to that can help get people involved?
So the one that's been near and dear to my heart for the last few years is Project Upland. They've got a magazine. They've got films that come out throughout the year. They have a podcast that's pretty darn good. So you've got Project Upland, you've got the Hunting Dog podcast with Ron Bain, On the Wing, and they're just kind of, you're going to want to try to find the podcast that speaks to you. You've got Birds, Buds, and Booze, which is Tyler's podcast. Basically, just kind of figure out what they'll all cover different things. They'll all have great folks on that'll teach you about how to hunt sharptails, which is something I've only ever hunted late season sharptails where we're really wary. So I'm super excited to be out here where I can actually hunt them earlier and try to actually get on them.
Me too.
So yeah. Well,
that's me inviting myself to Wyoming. Me too.
Yeah.
Can't wait to learn with you, Zach.
Yeah. Well, and like hunts, Hungary partridge, sharptails, stuff that I've never hunted hunts. I've hunted sharptails a couple times. But trying to find these people who give you a bit of a primer on these things. Podcasts are a perfect thing for that, and you can hear different people's perspectives, because how I hunt pheasants might be different than how the next person hunts pheasants. They don't, I don't know. So finding the podcast that speaks to you and just absorb them. Project Upland's definitely my number one. That's near and dear to my heart. And if you want to watch Alex's first hunt where he fails to shoot his first grouse, you could go over to Project Upland.
There's nothing in that video that shows me shooting at a grouse. So, now you talked a lot about birds, but there's a lot of people out there that want to hunt deer. You hunt deer. You hunt deer in Kansas. Anything deer related? Now, and speaking of Project Upland, AJ, he wrote a book on urban deer hunting. He used to live in Boston, and he used to take deer with a bow in the city. Yeah. So, you can read Guide to Urban. I believe it's called the Guide to Urban Hunting.
Urban Deer, the Urban Deer Complex.
Yeah, the Urban Deer Complex or something like that.
Yeah.
But you can find that. He's so bored of shooting deer. He's shot so many deer. But so any deer references? Is there any value in like Meat Eater podcast or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It can kind of be, for somebody who's just new to it, might be like throwing them to the wolves.
Yeah.
Because they are on some just incredible topics. They get into some pretty in-depth stuff. So for somebody like me who, is used to a lot of the general hunting stuff, seeing some of the wild stuff they do is great. Yeah. But it might be kind of being thrown into the deep end for a new hunter. So, but they do an incredible amount of content in general for hunting. A lot of game cooking. One that I found during the pandemic, basically when I'm sitting at home, bored out of my mind, deer meat for dinner. I don't know how his channel escaped me for so long, but he was in Saipan. He had gone to the Marianas Islands, and then the pandemic hit, and so he stuck hunting and fishing in a tropical paradise due to the pandemic. Which is just, it sucks to be him. So, but no, the great thing about him is he'll hunt and fish all the time, and then you get to see how he cleans it and how he cooks it on pretty much every video, which is one of the more valuable parts, because that's a thing that you get to come away with when you hunt and fish that somebody who doesn't has no idea. They have no idea they have this great resource right outside their back door, and he's showing you how to actually take advantage of it and clean it and cook it and what he does. So he's one that I've kind of been addicted to lately. Besides that, they're just an incredible number. We've got the Weatherby podcast here, so talking about the hunts that our partners and folks here in the office go on, getting kind of a look into backcountry hunting. In my previous life, I'd done some backcountry hunting, and the folks here live it. They absolutely live it. Yeah. So they're hiking in with everything they need for camp and game processing, all that, and camera gear, and adding 20, 25 pounds of camera gear, which just makes it even tougher.
Which is insane.
But yeah, just there's a wealth of different content creators out there that are making great stuff. Yeah. So kind of find the one that speaks to you. They're not all going to be your favorite.
Yeah. So. And Project Upland was kind of devised around getting people from urban communities involved in hunting. Just because you didn't grow up around guns or hunting and you live in a city and you want to get out into the wilderness, it's a great opportunity to get people that,
even just
people from urban communities
just people
out.
Who aren't exposed.
That's true too. I did notice Nick Larson, host of Project Upland podcast, go creep him on Instagram and look who he follows. One that I found through him is Hunters of Color, and that's motivating. You always think of like, white people are hunters and stuff, but there are so many people from all walks of life that hunt, that come from urban communities, come from other countries that hunt and live in America, and and adopt that into part of their culture. And that's another one, another really good one to follow on Instagram is Hunters of Color.
Absolutely.
So we got some.
Go ahead. Sorry. There's so many different. One thing we didn't talk about. probably have a decent number of folks who like to shoot long range. And so another one, you could shoot some long range hogs, but really like prairie dogs, there are places in South Dakota that are just infested with prairie dogs.
Right.
And so doing a prairie dog shoot, you're not going to eat them. I don't know anybody who's ever eaten a prairie dog, and they carry some diseases, but helping control the populations there. And then also, like, you look at people like Cameron Haynes, who is famous for being able to shoot his bow at incredible distances. And kind of his rule of thumb is if he is confident in his ability to shoot that bow at 100, 120 yards.
Wow.
He's confident in taking an animal at half of that.
Right.
So if with your
I have
6'5" Creedmoor, if you're 6'5" Creedmoor, you're confident hitting a plate at 1,100 yards. You would realistically 550 would be it'd be a good guide for how far you should.
700 is my threshold where I'm like, okay, if wind is too switchy, I'm not confident in this. Yeah. But hitting a larger animal like a whitetail buck at 650 would be extremely doable for a very, at least hitting that kill box.
I would say that, but also you want to dial that back because you want your room for error to be much greater.
Totally get
taking the animal ethically and quickly. I would, if you're confident on steel at 700 on that size of target, I would dial it back to 4. So
no, 4 is too easy.
So really, I would just say, if 4 is too easy, then you need to be able to hit that.
It's all about wind. It's just wind.
Yeah.
For long shooting, it's just wind, and for bow too. And yeah, that's one thing. I shot bow my whole life. And I stopped shooting bow about 10 years ago. I grew out of my bow and just didn't buy another one. I just bought a Hoyt Carbon in November of last year. It's now warm and nice enough to go shoot it. But the guys at the Coyote Creek Outdoors, they were like, dude, if you have the capability to shoot 70 yards with your bow, shoot 70 fucking yards with your bow. The longer you can confidently shoot your bow, the better you're going to be, more confident you're going to be shooting a deer within 50, 40.
At 30.
At 30,
Yeah.
So
it's going to be a no-brainer.
So especially gauging distances and getting a rangefinder out and doing all that. Luckily enough for me, I have about 60 yards in my yard of lawn that I can shoot. So, but if I miss, it's going into the woods and losing that fucking arrow. So, but anyway, long story short.
Motivation to be better.
Motivation to be better. I get asked a lot on Instagram, what scope should I put on this gun? What the fuck is that? Hold on.
The Mighty Hunter.
The Mighty Hunter. Oh, you're dead. I just killed you.
It takes no joy in killing.
Spiders, yes. I saw the spider flow across my room. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I get asked a lot. I get a lot of questions like, should I do 6.5 Creedmoor or 300 Win Mag for elk and deer, and what scope should I use? But answering questions like that are so difficult because where are you hunting? We were in the Frank Church Wilderness. It was ridiculous. I had too much power on my glass. It was heavy, and that extra weight beat the shit out of me.
Who could have told you that you were putting too much scope on that gun?
You told me to have at least 500 yards of range. The most we had was 40 yards.
You cherry picking here, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, an NX8 2.5 to 20 Night Force is as much as my gun in weight. Okay. So, long story short, it depends what you're doing. If you want to hunt elk in the lower part of Idaho, out in the plains where it's open and they're not pressured by wolves, maybe you want a higher glass so you can take one at distance. I wouldn't shoot an elk with 6.5 Creedmoor. It depends what elk you're shooting. Some elk are more resilient than other elk. Frank Church elk are bomb-proof. You got to shoot them 4 or 5 times, which we shouldn't say that too loud. You're supposed to shoot.
It's all about shot placement. It's all about the right bullet for the amount of speed it's going to be going at the animal.
But the cover in the Frank Church Wilderness, you might have only a headshot, or you might just see to take an animal, they're basically like, if you see a head, shoot it in the fucking head if you want to take it home, because you might not get another opportunity. and that's up to you. Do you want to mount it? Do you want to, but it depends what you're trying to accomplish. But people don't understand, like if you're shooting speed goats in Wyoming, you're going to want glass and a gun that can put distance and cheat wind a little bit.
Flat shooting that can use a good bullet.
Yep, that can use a good bullet.
Efficient. So it really depends on what you're after. It depends on what you've shot before. There's so many variables. It depends on where you're hunting, what the cover's like, the distance.
Mentorship comes in here.
What's that?
This is where mentorship comes in.
It does. Yeah. Yep. And it might be that you're on a hunt like that backcountry hunt and a super light rifle. Like that's the beauty of having come over here to Weatherby is the super light rifles. We've got guns that are under 5 pounds that have a really effective break and a really effective recoil pad, and so you're not actually destroying yourself like an old 5-pound rifle would have back in the day.
Right.
But yeah, it all depends. So that's about finding people that you can bounce things off of. There are going to be a lot of cartridges that are going to be general for the hunting in the United States. You can't really go wrong with 270 or 3.6. They'll do the job.
Or 300 Win Mag.
Great cartridges. 300 Win Mag. The thing is, once you've been doing it for a while, one of the things about it is energy at the animal. Being able to have enough energy when that bullet hits the animal to ethically quickly kill it. And so that's kind of the theme here at Weatherby is velocity. We do cartridges that are super hot. So they're gonna have the power at the animal to create the wound that needs to happen for an ethical quick kill.
Right.
So like the 257 Weatherby Magnum, it'll do most everything in the U.S.
Yes.
It's a heck of a cartridge. So finding the gun that matches what you can afford, one, because it doesn't do any good if you're going to go out and buy a $2,000 gun and that exhausts all the money that you could have spent going on trips and hunting.
Right.
So you might as well buy a $600 gun, buy a better piece of glass, and then go on a trip. Actually take the trip. So it just depends. And if you already have a gun, there's very likely something you can take that gun and go hunt.
Exactly.
You don't need a new gun. It'd be nice, but you don't need it.
I would not shoot an elk with 6.5 Creedmoor. We actually did see someone shoot an elk with 6.5 Weatherby at 35 yards.
The RPM.
And it went through the animal and never created that wound cavity that you wanted to because...
Oh, it created a wound cavity. It just... Yeah, especially at that distance.
Zipped through it. It's just moving too fast. So distance is important. Picking a caliber for the distance you believe that you're going to be taking an animal and getting...
More bullet construction.
Yeah,
having the right bullet construction. So if you have too strong of a bullet and it's not going to expand,
some of those bullets are specifically strong because they're breaking through bone and shoulder plate, and then that fragments the bullet and causes the animal to die and bleed out quickly. But if it's too strong and you hit them in a soft area, it's just gonna freaking pop ice pick holes in it, and the animal's gonna get away.
Given the number of shots taken by that individual, I don't know if it ever even hit.
Well, they said not the first one he missed didn't hit at all. The second one, though, they said that they found evidence of impacts from him, and they had exits on the other side the same size as the entrances. But again, I don't trust anything they said. So you got that. A lot of times people ask me on Instagram, they say, what sidearm should I carry when I'm hunting deer? It's like, you shouldn't. There's nothing, unless you're in Wyoming, so you got grizzlies, right?
Yeah.
So you got grizzlies. So if you're in a grizzly habitat, carry a grizzly gun. But I'm in the Northeast in New Hampshire. We got bears, bobcats, coyotes. The only thing I'm afraid in New England is of moose. Yeah. Bears don't scare me unless I'm between a mother bear and her cubs. My 9mm that I carry every day with me will probably curb a female black bear in my area. But I'm only afraid of moose, and that's just avoid them.
The other factor in all this is sometimes you're dealing with two-legged predators, especially with bow hunters. There have been instances where folks get into an argument about somebody being in a deer stand where that guy wanted to set up his deer stand, And there are famous cases where people didn't have a way to protect themselves, and guy shows up and kills them.
So
I mean, it's weird. So people get weird. There are times where hunters get territorial, and aren't the greatest people in the world. So depending on where you are, it might behoove you to carry your CCW if you're out bow hunting.
Yep.
But for the most part, no. If you got a rifle, you've got something that can take care of whatever's there.
Right. So it all depends. I mean, I always carry a CCW on me. That's just me. Like, no matter what I do. I didn't carry one in Idaho because there's no grizzlies where we were in Idaho. And that
can't swim the river.
And they can't swim the river according to the state, and that's extra weight that you don't need to carry. But if I was in an area like Wyoming where you do have grizzlies, I probably would carry something that would help me in that situation. So again, just pick something for the area that you're in. Most of the United States, a sidearm is not necessary, other than, like you said, two-legged deer causing issues. But other than that, what else would you like to touch on, Zach? Do you have any?
Man, oh man.
We've done a lot. This podcast is mostly like intro to hunting, how to get started, a couple stories, but is there anything like really pertinent that you think you can share with listeners that might also help them out?
Well, and honestly, one of the things that if you need a little extra push to get into hunting, like you want to get into hunting, but you don't know where to start and all that, honestly, get in a hunting dog. Like a lot of people, if you want to have a family dog that also does other things, it's been built to do other things, you could get a squirrel dog. You don't have to get a bird dog. You get a squirrel dog. You could get a rat terrier and go ratting. Like that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in the cities. Is they'll have like groups of people that get together at night and go ratting, and they take their rat terriers and their Jack Russells and all these different dogs that are meant to hunt vermin, and go out as a group and hunt rats in a city. That's wild, and it's really cool. But having a family companion that also serves another purpose, and then the more you're around a bird dog, you're going to see what they can do, and the different things they open up, and you're going to fall in love.
Yep.
You're going to love. I mean, even just following the dog and watching what they do is more fun than anything. Is seeing that puppy that you brought up and worked with learn how to do the thing they were bred to do. It's neat. It's really neat. And that can be like the extra push. And if you have a bird dog that only gets to go out bird hunting a couple times a year, it is what it is. That's fine. But it'll enrich your life. It really will.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that, but that is one of the most gratifying things that I have got to experience is hunting over different breeds of dogs. Mm-hmm. We say hunting over because obviously we're shooting over the dogs. Getting to hunt over Weimaraners, English pointers, English setters, Chesafusiks, GSPs, wire hair pointers.
A little cocker spaniel.
Your little cocker spaniel.
Sorts of different breeds. Yeah.
And one thing to keep in mind, guys, if you are picking out a bird dog, you got to pick out a hunting dog because there's blood dogs, blood tracking dogs. I mean, even Deutsch Kutzars, which is the species the breed that I got, they use them in Europe for fur hunt, like for foxes. They use them for waterfowl. So it's a multi-purpose animal. I got her for specifically bird hunting. But you got to make sure that when you get a dog that you're going to a breeder that breeds hunting dogs. Just because you got an English purebred lab doesn't mean it comes from a line of hunting dogs. Yes, there are things in their brain that are hunting specific, but labs these days are bred to be house dogs. It's like the quintessential white people, middle America, family
it's
dog.
Also the health aspect. A reputable breeder will have, they'll have information on how the hips of these dogs have done for several generations. They'll know the things to look for before they do breeding, and finding one that comes well recommended, mainly for the health aspect.
Right.
You don't want to get a dog that has so many health issues. I've been there.
You get a lab with hip
it is what it
dysplasia,
is.
can't hunt for more than an hour before you have to carry it back.
Yep.
You have a dog that you have a pound dog that's a pretty awesome hunting dog that you got on a whim, but she's got really horrible allergies.
Absolutely.
She can only hunt certain times of the year.
Yeah, it has to be snowing and wet for her to be able to hunt. And she loves it, and she's an incredible dog. But there have been times where she has an allergy attack, and I'm carrying her out of the field. Yep. And it is what it is. She was a dog that was at my local pound and has turned into a great hunting dog. But if you're actually going out of your way to go get a dog and you're not doing a rescue, definitely do your research, put a little time in. It will pay off in the long run. The other side of it is every recognized breed in the United States, as far as like AKC breeds, every one of them has a specific rescue. So if you know that you want a Brittany, and you don't know where to start, there are dogs out there that come from hunting families that are trained and have hunted for 5 years that are now in the rescue because the old guy who had him has passed away, and the dogs ended up going to the rescue. And so there are opportunities through the breed specific rescues that are incredible.
Yep.
So if you want to get a hunting dog, you end up with a 5-year-old Brittany that's actually already hunted. Like
a finished dog that's perfect.
Yeah. They're all going to come with their baggage, but you know what? We all come with baggage.
Right.
So yeah.
NAVDA. NAVDA is a great resource for hunting dogs.
Absolutely. So it's basically a system under which people learn how to train and test their dogs and see how well they do. So getting involved with the NAVDA chapter near you will help you find who breeds good dogs and who can help you train dogs, and who can, they have frameworks on what those dogs should be able to do. And so it's one of those things, it's time. People shy away from things like this because it's a time commitment.
Right.
And a dog is a time commitment. But you can get so much more out of it as a result.
Out of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll push you to do more things. The more dogs I got, the more hunting I did, and the more hunting I wanted to do.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things. Once you get into it, once everything starts rolling, a whole new world can open up. So, yeah.
Well, I think that is a great way to end this podcast. I think we got plenty of information for people that want to get into this. We're going to have to do this again after one of our next hunts. We can have a post-hunt podcast.
I think maybe you're going to get to host the hunt this time.
Ooh, yeah, come out to New Hampshire. Now that I have a dog. Yeah, dude. Now that I know where some good woodcock cover is, we'll shoot more woodcock in one day than we did in a week up north. But, yeah, we'll have to have you out this fall for bird hunt, upland bird hunt in New Hampshire. We also have Chucker here, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it's on the state website for small game, or for upland birds.
Excellent.
I don't know where, but they're here.
Yeah, being something mountainous.
Chucker from India. Yeah. Funny how that works. Anyway, Zach Hein, you are the director of marketing over at Weatherby. Congrats on your new position. And thank you for everyone tuning in and listening to episode 9 of the ANR Design Unholstered podcast. Have a wonderful afternoon.